I have spent 0 minutes on the phone asking for money. And instead, I'm out there talking to people on the streets, at the farmers market, at the doors, and that's what all of our, campaign folks and volunteers are doing.
Welcome back to In the Meanwhile. I'm Marcus Harrison Green, long-suffering journalist, recovering optimist, and reluctant political doula to every friend who's ever texted me, hey, I think I'm going to run for office, which is basically the elder millennial version of, I'm going to start a band.
And I'm Nora Kenworthy, currently serving as a member of the Underground Railway for runaway Texas legislators. And after another spin around the national news roundup this week, someone who is about 2 rage texts away from turning my group chat into a super PAC with a new mission statement that says, absolutely the fuck not. Um, but Marcus, you forgot to mention that you're also the guy who last year was splitting a single Americano. Yes, that's right, because mutual aid and inflation. But splitting a coffee with today's guest, and now she may actually be on her way to becoming the mayor of Seattle.
That is right. I call this the best of the American dream here. Like one day you're with your friend, figure out whether it's cheaper to get a 16-ounce Americano and ask for a second cup. And the next you're watching the same friend crush the mayoral primary in Seattle and get compared to Zoran Mamdani.
For those playing catch up, Zohran Mamdani is the New York Assembly member who ran on taxing the rich, housing the poor, and just not being so boring, and actually won in New York City's mayoral race. So just like today's guest, but minus the borough accent.
Yeah, I gotta say, Nora, like I love Katie Wilson, who we're having on today. But when she first texted me about running, I assumed it was like a COVID fever dream or something. Like, who hasn't fantasized about running for office while spiraling on X in vitamin D deficiency, particularly in Seattle? And then wisely, they're just like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Right? I mean, as the saying goes, anyone smart enough to run for office is smart enough to not want the job. Um, but as our current government continues to remind us by the minute, well, man, we desperately need smart people like Katie to actually step up and do the job.
Yeah, rank incompetence just isn't doing it for you, huh?
No, not so
Yeah,
much. The
anyway.
diversity initiatives are not working right now.
I'm telling you. What do they call them? The DUI initiatives that are
Yeah.
going on in the federal government right now. Anyhow, anyway, when she hit me with, "Hey, I'm announcing my run next week," I thought she meant like a run, like a 5K, which are very popular in the city of Seattle, even though it rains a ton. Like everybody is doing a 5K for something, whether it's mutual
Every
aid or
weekend.
yeah, or like, drag queen, bingo hour. We're trying to fundraise for that, whatever. So I'm like, oh, okay. But no, she was like, mayor of Seattle run. And I was like, oh, shit. Okay. I'm going to go back through all of our text threads and retroactively label them off the record.
And now Katie Wilson is the progressive frontrunner in a city like many blue coastal cities that saw a huge retrenchment in our progressive politics after 2020. Democrat came to mean something like loves some bike lanes through rich parts of the city and also loves militarized homeless sweeps. So, yeah, it's a really big deal that she came out so far ahead in our primary election this week.
Yeah, I can't tell you. I don't think that there was anybody of, at least there's certainly no major news outlets here who had her finishing the top of the primary. Like, I think everybody, for the most part, thought that she would, come out as a distant second. But the level of surprise and slack jawed shock on, the punditry up here in Seattle was something to behold. That being said, all jokes aside, Katie just didn't appear out of nowhere like some brunch liberals folklore or something. She's been doing the damn work for years. She's been organizing, writing, testifying, dragging policymakers through the public comment process like it's her daily cardio session. She has been on it.
And now she's doing what most of us are way too afraid to do, even in the privacy of our most feral group chats. She's actually running to fix the mess herself without billionaires, without hedge fund sugar daddies, just unapologetically getting out there to do the work as a progressive policymaker and serve a lot of tired ass Seattleites who want better for our city.
Yeah. Well, I certainly know too right here. I God, yes. She is very much a breath of fresh air. And so today we are talking to a person who took me from this is a fever dream to wait, this could actually fucking happen. Seattle mayoral candidate Katie Wilson. Yes, she is my friend. No, I do not cover her as a journalist. But yes, I can ethically interview her on this little show I co host with this brilliant human being to my left.
And so today we're going to get into what finally made Katie Wilson say, screw it, I'm running, how she plans to hold power without selling out, and what the path still is forward for cities like Seattle under the crushing weight of the horrors.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and and without getting like overly hyped and hopeful, I do feel like this episode has a lot of treasures in store for folks in other places as well as Seattle who have been waiting for a glimmer of hope like this for a very long time.
Absolutely. What is happening in Seattle certainly shouldn't stay here. And without further ado, if you are somebody who is asking yourself, why doesn't someone do something about all this? Well, Katie Wilson did. So let's get into it. So, Katie, there are so many people who I've talked to recently who have considered, you know, running for office and, they're not sure if it's the right time or not. And so I want to ask you, you've spent years organizing on the outside, writing, agitating, demanding better policy. What convinced you that this was the right time to step into the system and run for the city's top job?
That's a great question, Marcus. And, I've been a community organizer now for, 14, 15 years. And honestly, running for office has never been an ambition of mine. um, and, when you do this kind of work over the years, people will ask you, are you going to run for office? And my answer to that has always just been like, hell no, that's not my role. And yeah, I mean, I've always in the past seen my role as being on the outside, right? Building up the power that we need to get good people elected, hold them accountable, get good policies passed. And I think that, I mean, that's where my heart is in community organizing always, right? I think that that is how we get good things done is by, ordinary people coming together and building that power. Um, so things for me shifted pretty quickly early this year, and I've told this story many times, but I'll tell it again. So in February, we had a special election on funding Seattle's new social housing developer, right? And this is an effort that started the previous year, right, when Seattle voters supported the creation of a new social housing developer to basically pioneer what's a little bit of a different model of affordable housing that we don't often do in the US, but that's more similar to what European cities like Paris and Vienna have done for a long time, where you're trying to basically build a non-market housing sector that's mixed income and permanently affordable, publicly owned. So it's this really exciting project. And so we had a measure on the ballot in February to fund the new social housing developer through a tax on wealthy corporations. And our current mayor, Bruce Harrell, kind of teamed up with Amazon and Microsoft and the Chamber of Commerce to support a alternative measure which kind of pretended to still support social housing, but really undermined it. And, his face was plastered all over mailers that everyone got. And honestly, I thought that effort was gonna succeed, right? I thought that people would be fooled, but they weren't. And so the tax on wealthy corporations passed in a landslide, right? Seattle voters said very strongly, we want social housing in Seattle. And to me, that was really exciting. And it really showed how out of step our current mayor is with the people of Seattle, with the voters. And it really showed I think, people's support for that measure is in part a reflection of the affordability crisis and the fact that people are really feeling how expensive it is to live in this city, right? Rents keep going up, housing costs are so high, right? If you want to buy a home, it just feels out of reach. And so I think that that really just tipped me over into thinking about running. Also because the mayor has a lot of power to make that project succeed or fail, right? I think the city is going to need to be a really strong partner with the new social housing developer in identifying land, to create a land bank and financing. And so if we have a mayor who's trying to undermine that project, it could easily fail in the next 4 years. And when government doesn't deliver, people lose faith in it. And so we really need that project to succeed. And so that is another big part of why I decided to jump in this race, because I think we're at a point in Seattle where we just cannot afford another 4 years of failure on the big issues facing our city. Yeah, so that's why I'm running.
We're so excited that you are. um, across the country, we're starting to see more candidates who are openly running on platforms like this one, like taxing the rich, making housing and transportation more affordable, shifting public safety away from policing. I'm sure that a lot of people are talking to you about Zohran Mamdani's win in New York City and sort of what it shows of what can happen when a candidate builds a campaign again around, tenants and immigrants and working class voters. So, what sorts of lessons are you taking away from that? I mean, can we call it a wave yet? Like, I don't know.
I think it's a wave.
Okay, yay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what's happening here is we are in a moment where cities, blue cities, I suppose I would say, across the country, there are some similar forces at work. And it's really national. And part of this is the moment that we're in is obviously the Trump moment as well, right? So last fall we had an election where the kind of stodgy establishment Democratic Party utterly failed to stop this train wreck and is clearly out of touch with the average voter. And so I think there's just this kind of disillusionment with that style of politics. And I think we're seeing incumbents, and I would include Harrell in this. I'm not going to say that Harrell's the Andrew Cuomo of Seattle. Other people have drawn that comparison, but I'm not going to say that. But I do think that he does not break the mold of that style of politics, right? That he's been in office for 18 years. He's a very transactional politician. And so I think there's a really deep disillusionment with that and a realization that that's not a politics that meets the moment. And then the affordability crisis is another big part of the moment we're in, right? We're coming out of the pandemic. We've just seen the cost of everything skyrocket, from housing to groceries to childcare. And people aren't feeling that their elected leaders are leading on that, frankly. And so I think we're in this moment where I think there's a perennial desire for government to deliver and get results that people have been frustrated by for a very long time, right? It's been very long since people had faith in government. And I think that means that every election cycle, there tends to be a kick the bastards out kind of mentality, right? And it swings from, ends up swinging from left to right. So I think we're in a moment where that desire for results is coinciding with this disillusionment with this certain brand of establishment Democratic Party politics. And of course, also disillusionment with Trump. And, that's not as much of a factor in Seattle, where everyone was already disillusioned with Trump. But anyway, so that's just kind of like the moment that we're in. And I think that's playing out obviously in New York City, playing out here, playing out in Minneapolis and some other cities around the country.
Yeah, and I mean, you touched on it, right? But I mean, there are so many quote unquote blue cities that continue to have issues with income inequality, continue to have issues with with housing affordability. I'm thinking, our coastal neighbors in Portland and Seattle, or at least our West Coast neighbors, I should say. And so I'm wondering, can you talk a little bit more about your housing policy? Because I do think it's something that could be instructive for other cities potentially.
Yeah, sure. And I guess just to say one more thing about kind of the moment we're in. I also think that it's important for those of us, on the left who look like we might be soon to win positions of power, not to overinterpret or misinterpret the moment we're in, right? Because we saw in Seattle the last two elections were kind of backlashes against progressive politics. And now we're seeing kind of a backlash to a backlash where people kind of had buyer's remorse and they're looking at what the current mayor and city council are trying to do. And they're like, oh, wait, this isn't, this isn't what we wanted. But I think it's important to realize that part of what's going on here is that people just want government that works and that delivers for people, and that's not really a left right coded thing per se. And so I think it's really important for people like me who might be stepping into office to also realize that like that is what people want. And part of our challenge is, not just to get up there and be a someone who's shouting about taxing the rich and giving away free stuff, but but to actually make sure that our government is functioning well day to day. And we there's no excuse in Seattle for not having like the best functioning municipal government in America, right? So I think that that's just a really important point, is that we shouldn't overinterpret this, because 4 years from now, if we aren't actually doing a good job and delivering things, then things could easily swing back the other way, right? So anyway, now to your question, Marcus, about housing. So yeah, I mean, the housing crisis has been the kind of underlying factor in so many of the problems that we face in Seattle for so long, right? And including the homelessness crisis. It's a huge driver. And right, I mean, I think we all remember like 10 years ago when Seattle and King County first declared a civil state of emergency on homelessness. And like we have just seen things get worse. And that is, homelessness is complex, but it's also simple. And the simple part is that it's about housing costs. And so in order to tackle our housing crisis, which affects people all across the income scale, we have to do a whole range of things, right? There's not one solution. And part of it is about housing supply. Part of it is the fact that our region has been growing and growing and growing. People have been coming here for tech jobs. People have been coming here for all kinds of reasons. And our housing supply simply has not grown to match. And that's partly because of restrictive zoning laws that, go back to redlining, exclusionary zoning. And we really need to make it possible to build more multifamily housing in neighborhoods across the city, especially, historically white, wealthy, exclusionary neighborhoods that have great amenities. And so that is one big part of the puzzle. And at the same time, we also know that that's not enough, right? And that sometimes the way development has been done has also contributed to displacement. And so we need to be taking measures to prevent displacement, and we need to be doing a lot to affirmatively build and create affordable housing, because it's not going to automatically trickle down to create affordable housing, especially for the poorest households. And so there's where social housing comes in, right? We need to go big on social housing, do everything we can to get that social housing developer rolling. And we also need to continue to support our more traditional models of affordable housing, through the low-income housing tax credit program, et cetera. Also support affordable homeownership programs, and, Homestead Community Land Trust is, doing great work. We have other, Africa Town, other land trusts that, sometimes it's a mix of kind of a renter model and an ownership model. But there's a lot of great creative work being done in Seattle that the city should continue to support. And then renter protections as well, right? I think that there's ways that we can strengthen protections for the majority of Seattle households that rent, that growing majority, that will help to stabilize rents and increase housing stability. So it's kind of an all of the above approach to the housing crisis, and that is the only way that we're going to move the needle.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about really speaking to the issues that are really impacting the majority of Seattleites. The thing about Seattle politics, which I know you know, is that there are big, powerful institutional actors in the room, from corporations to police guilds, who can powerfully sort of step on the levers to slow things down. I mean, we've seen that with corporations like Amazon in the past. So, how are you thinking, should you become mayor, about how to actually shift some of those power imbalances? And um, kind of move the policy making towards something that really serves people of Seattle, rather than the sort of business influence, the bureaucracy, and the corporate interests.
Yeah, that is a great question, and I think there's a few parts to the answer. So one is, my work over the years, I've been community organizer, I'm a coalition builder, right? So all of the big victories that I've been a part of over the years have been about coalition building, bringing together many organizations, individuals, keeping everyone moving toward a common vision. And all of the relationships that I've built up over the years doing that, like I know so many like amazing, passionate people in Seattle who are just incredibly skilled and competent and experts in their fields. And so it's really about kind of assembling that team that can push forward a vision and not being afraid to ruffle some feathers, frankly. I mean, I think um yeah, I mean it's kind of this balance between it's like building the right coalition that's going to just get those things done. And I guess one way that I've been thinking about this is that not to pretend that I understand all the motivations of the current mayor, but I do think that, at least from what I've heard, there's a sense in which, like, he's been very focused on keeping together the coalition that will get him reelected. And that means really not angering any of the power players, right? It means kind of giving this person a little bit here and this, these guys a little bit here. And what that means is that you end up kind of paralyzed. And I really think that's just the wrong way to govern, right? I think that because that's not a vision, right? That's not a vision for the city. That's a vision of like, I want to get reelected. And so therefore I have to placate all these interests and balance all these interests.
Hmm.
And so I think what we really need is that affirmative vision for the city that we all want to live in, right? One that is affordable, one that's walkable, one that's, a place where I mean, speaking as a renter, right? Like you could raise a family in an apartment building and there we've got great parks and we have great amenities um and so we need to rally people around that vision and then not be afraid to ruffle feathers and go against powerful interests in getting there. And you can't do that without shaking things up and you can't it's kind of okay. Like I'm not gonna step in there and be thinking about what I need to do to get reelected. I'm gonna step in there and think about what do we need to do to realize this vision that a large majority of Seattle residents believe in. It's like happiness, right? It's like if you spend your life trying to be happy, you're gonna be miserable, right? Like you need to like be pushing for meaning for like having a meaningful life, right? You need to do things that are meaningful and then maybe if you're lucky you're happy, right? This is like you need to have a vision and go for that vision and then like maybe if you're lucky you get reelected, right? So this is not the way politics normally works, but I think it's the way politics should work, right? Because it's not about you. It's not about the politician. It's about the vision. It's about, what you're actually trying to achieve for the city.
Yeah. Katie Wilson, come for the politics and stay for the Buddhist life wisdom. I love it. I love it. No, I do want to ask you because something I noticed, and this was similar to when Donnie won the primary in New York, you had a lot of sort of establishment uh, Democrats, if you will, who can't, even some people who build themselves as progressive who came out, for his opponent Cuomo and so forth. That was something similar that honestly happened here in Seattle, where you had a lot of this prominent Democrats come out for your opponent Bruce Harrell, and so I'm wondering, you kind of you mentioned them a little bit in your primary night speech,
I didn't
about.
name any names, Marcus. I didn't name
I
any
didn't say you
names.
named any, but you had alluded. Is that an accurate is that an
Yeah.
accurate assessment? You alluded to
Yeah, I
folks,
did. I did.
and so, but this is what I want to ask you. I mean, do you, well, one, have any of those people reached back out to you, and then two, how can we, particularly what I've continued to see in the Democratic Party is like folks just seem to back the same old horses, where when we do really need change, and and that continues to play out throughout this country. And so how can we get some of the old guard, if you will, to open up their eyes to be like, hey, what has been working, what has happened in the past is not working, so we need to do something else, and a part of doing something else new is to have new people doing it, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think good question, and I think that I mean, just think about my race, being in first place on primary night and potentially cracking 50% in an eight-way primary will probably help some of those people come on board. So, um, you know, it's early, right? We're just
Not calling anybody an opportunist or anything.
we're just 2 days after the primary. So give them some time. And I'll also just say, I mean, look, I try not to be a petty person. So like I understand the position that individuals, politicians are in, that many organizations are in, where they have a working relationship with the mayor's office, a working relationship with the city. And so especially when you have a mayor in there who is a very transactional person, right? Like that it's a risk to jump on board a challenger's campaign like when it's not proven. And so I'm not like no hard feelings, right? Like I get the position that people are in, but at the same time, that also makes me extra value those who those who have the faith to join our campaign. And just to give a shout out there, I mean, Protect 17, right, the largest union of city workers that endorsed our campaign a few weeks ago, pre-primary. I, just astounded by the integrity of their union leadership and process. And they are taking a huge risk. We're taking a huge risk by jumping on board with our campaign. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of there's folks with courage out there too.
I also just want to say that my mom, Mama Green, was down day one. If that means anything. Anyhow, can,
She was like in the campaign lit, right?
yeah, she was. She was.
Marcus, that's why we're winning. We know that's why we're winning.
I didn't want to say anything. She's a humble woman.
Mama
But
Green
anyway.
is like her own political block. We all know it. Okay, I don't mean to ask a painful, stress-inducing question because you've already had quite a week. But you crushed it in this primary. And we've seen this story before across the country where a progressive wave just like kind of crashes through a primary and then runs into a ton of corporate money and scare tactics and just unsavory behavior during campaigns. We've already seen a bit of that directed towards you. How are you thinking about the strategy ahead in terms of, continuing to run according to your values and to, finance what is going to be a very competitive race with the kinds of money that you're up against?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, and this is the maybe the downside of having such a strong primary result is, hopefully people aren't going away being like, ah, she's got it in the bag. We don't need to fight because it's going to be a
Mm-hmm.
fight. Believe me, it's going to be a
Mm-hmm.
fight, right? And so we already saw in the primary, there's a corporate funded PAC for Harrell, which raised several $100,000, and you have to believe that there is going to be a lot of money piling up in that PAC to defeat me in November. And so we've already seen their lines of attacks, right? They're trying to paint me as the second coming of Shama Sawant and as a advocate for defunding the police. And so you could expect those attacks to really ramp up. And so yeah, we're trying to prepare for that. I mean, I feel like they're pretty weak lines of attack, actually, honestly. It's like my public safety platform's on my website. um, and honestly, like Harold's record on public safety and his running of the police department has been pretty poor. And so I think a lot of this is just going to be, look, here's our plan, and here's what the current mayor's failed to do. Um, and honestly, with the results this strong, like I'm going to be putting a significant amount of time now moving forward, not just into campaigning, but into actually making sure that I'm ready to step into office on day one. And so that means, building out that transition team, and making much more detailed, I guess I would say, plans for what I'm going to do, in every realm. And so I look forward to that conversation about public safety this fall, actually, because I think we could do a lot better on a lot of fronts. But okay, to answer your question, which is how are we going to win this fight? Ultimately, the answer is going to be our ground game and our ability to reach the people of Seattle with a message that is positive and that puts forward that vision that we can all believe in. And we have like 800 people in the primary who've volunteered in one way or another, and we're going to be growing that force. And so we are going to build the biggest ground game this city's ever seen. We're going to get out there and knock those doors. We're going to talk to people. We're going to just reach voters in every way we can. So, and that's going to be the strength of our campaign because we have enthusiasm and momentum on our side. And I don't think that our opponent does.
Yeah, I mean, and I just wanna like, your ground game has been amazing. I've been able to get out the vote for you in North Seattle. I remember when you first announced your campaign, there was, like, a Google form that you were circulating that was like, "Hey, can anyone help with my childcare? Can anyone help, like, drive me to events?" You know? And it was like it was a real, like, community effort, and I think we've lost some of that with these, like, huge big money campaigns, and people forget that Seattle is a pretty small city of connected communities, and I think you really have been bringing them together.
Thank you. Well, I have to say that I am just like so grateful for everyone who has stepped up and volunteered in so many different ways, right? We just have like kick-ass people helping with our social media and like yeah, as you say, like driving me around when I need to a ride somewhere and yeah, I mean it's just I feel like campaigning is stressful, but I also just feel so supported. Like so many people are really stepping up and it just feels like a real yeah, community team effort.
Yeah, I gotta ask you because I mean, Nora and I, we were joking in the intro to the show about the fact that just I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, you and I are just making $5 stretch and sharing an americano at an independent coffee shop. Of course, we don't do Starbucks, but you're just I mean, you're just a regular person, right? I mean, you have a it in the most, and I mean that in the most like honorific sense of that, of like you're not some billionaire, you're not some lobbyist, you're not some democratic operative, you're a normal person who wanted to just, quite frankly, just do the right thing and is trying to make our city better. And so I want to ask you, there are so many people, listening, so many people who I've, touched base with in my capacity as a reporter, who are like, does it actually make a difference to run? And at one, and then two, you know, they feel very intimidated, at the prospect of running because of what we've outlined already in this conversation. There's so much money. There's press sticking into your life. There's bad actors who many times wants to see a progressive you know and their downfall. And so what message would you have for those people who are, I don't know, I'm actually just in my mind, I'm thinking about somebody, a friend of mine in San Antonio, Texas, with all the craziness that's going on in Texas right now, thinking about running for the legislature over there. What would you say to those people who are like, I don't feel like I'm either, uh, I don't have the quote unquote cachet or the charisma or the money, to run, and yet they would probably be very well equipped to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I would say go for it. I mean, that's the optimistic answer. Like we need people to step out of their comfort zone and if you're someone who kind of is in a position to be able to do that and to give voice to your neighbors and the people that you interact with every day who maybe don't, aren't in a position to do that, like go for it. But I think the bigger answer is that I also feel like collectively on kind of the left broadly speaking, we need to build more of the infrastructure to support candidates and to run candidates for office and also support and organize behind them in office to actually get the things done that we want to get done. Because I think we live in a world where that kind of universe of like campaign consultants and party people and just all the kind of like political class, it's kind of a vortex that like even if you're kind of a good legitimate normal person candidate, right? Like you can get sucked into and turned into something else. And I think we need a much more like community based, independent kind of infrastructure for supporting. I mean, I'm just thinking locally right now, but like supporting local candidates and making sure that they're able to actually deliver on big things in office.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanna follow up and ask a little bit more about that sort of, like, infrastructure, because Seattle also has a democracy vouchers program,
Mm.
which, yay, just got renewed by voters. um, and this program enables voters to support candidates without large donors or independent money to run for office. In New York, Mom Donnie's campaign seems to have benefited from the city's ranked choice voting system. Do you think that these types of changes to electoral systems are helping shift politics back towards the people? And as mayor, what other changes would you like to see introduced in cities like Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, I think the democracy voucher program is amazing, and I do not know that we would have been able to run this campaign without it. So I'm really thrilled that voters really strongly also passed that at the ballot this August. Um, and I'll say, like before I was a candidate, I thought the democracy voucher program was cool, but just like yeah, it's cool. But now as a candidate, it's really transformative, both in the sense that it allows someone who's not coming from a wealthy kind of uh milieu like me to run, but also it really changes the incentives for candidates in such a good way, right? Because like if I was trying to run this game or this campaign without democracy vouchers, like me and my team would just be like in a room calling like wealthy Democratic Party donors, trying to get money out of them. And then those would be the people that we were kind of accountable to, right? Because they like funded our campaign. But with democracy vouchers, like every single person in the city has something that is potentially of value to you. And so you, as a candidate and as a campaign, have the incentive to be out there talking to normal people every single day. And that's what we've been doing. I have spent 0 minutes on the phone asking for money. And instead, I'm out there talking to people on the streets, at the farmers market, at the doors, and that's what all of our campaign folks and volunteers are doing. So I just think it's really fantastic, and it really does provide that ability for non-traditional candidates to run. And yeah, I would love to see more cities around the country copy that as well, for sure.
It's like such a magical program. It's a magical thing that like all the local candidates are walking through neighborhoods, talking to people and asking them for their support, and people have a way to support them
Yep.
financially for free. It's just an extraordinary thing.
It really is.
Um,
And I guess in terms of saying like what else do we need to do? So since we're here with Marcus, I'm going to just give a plug for this wild idea that Marcus and I and others in the journalism space have been talking about for a few years now, which is basically a program kind of like democracy vouchers, but for supporting local news outlets. And, you know, we're in a time when there's just not a viable funding model for independent journalism. And so we've seen newsrooms around the country like downsizing or closing, and we've seen, so many news deserts around the country. Seattle's in like a somewhat better position than a lot of places, but like we used to have two daily newspapers, we used to have two alternative weeklies, and it really having that kind of paucity of news outlets and so many of the ones that exist, right, are just like struggling and they don't have as many reporters as they want, right? And that really just creates a kind of impoverished information environment that allows extremism to flourish and just means that people don't like we're just not able to keep powerful institutions and governments accountable in the same way. And so a program like democracy vouchers but for funding local news outlets would basically enable there to be this kind of citizen driven public funding without the government actually deciding like where that money goes. And I think that could just be amazing. It could just give a real boost to a lot of the small neighborhood based news outlets that we already have. It could inspire more to start, and it could just result in just like a much I mean, because democracy is not just when we elect people every 4 years, right? It's about the information that we get every day of every one of those 4 years. And so I think that would be a really cool thing to pioneer here in Seattle.
Yeah. Here, here. I roundly agree. Um,
it's such a cool idea.
yeah, we will. There will be a future episode on that, I'm sure. That being said, and I know we're 30 minutes in, and we almost got through the entire episode of talking about Terra 47, but alas, he corrodes all of our lives here. So I want to I want to ask you, Katie. All of us in this interview have the distinction of belonging to demographics that our current orange overlord would happily deport, gag, or strip of basic bodily autonomy before breakfast. And so I want to ask you, if you were elected, you'd be serving as progressive mayor in a blue city under Trump, and that's a tall, tall, tall order. So And what areas do you think there's some meaningful local policy that could help actually, protect our marginalized communities here under what is, quite frankly, just growing fascism?
Yeah, very good question. So there's a number of pieces to this. So one that I often start with is revenue. A lot of things come down to money when you're talking about the city. And so when we're seeing potential cuts to federal grant programs that are going to impact the city budget, when we're seeing potential cuts to, or not potential at this point, but actually coming cuts to Medicaid, to SNAP benefits that are going to impact Seattle residents, right? The city is going to need to really step up and, working with the county, working with the state, we are going to need to come up with new progressive revenue to make sure that we're able to protect people and that people are not left without healthcare access, that are not left without food access, not left without housing, and all the pieces in the budget that are endangered by the federal government cutting or withholding funds. So that is one big area that the city's going to really need to lead on in the coming years. Of course, with ICE and the kind of supercharging of funding for ICE that's coming through in the bill that just passed, that's another whole area where the city's going to need to step up. And looking at some of the things that other cities around the country are doing, there's some cities who are actually directing their law enforcement to intervene in unlawful ICE operations. I think that's something we should look in here, right? We can't have masked, unbadged people walking around our city or, yanking people into vans, right? That could be anyone. So I think we really need to look at that. And I know, the mayor of Boston has been like filing FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests to get additional transparency around who ICE is detaining and why. Just like everything that we can do to kind of interfere with their operations, the better. I also think we need some clarity around what our law enforcement should be doing when there are protests around ICE operations, because there's certainly been cases where it looks like SPD, or this has happened in other cities too, law enforcement is collaborating, whereas they're not supposed to, right? We have our Keep Washington Working Act, which prohibits local law enforcement from collaborating with ICE. So we need to have some more clarity around kind of what that line is. And in general, the city just needs to work very closely. We have amazing, advocates, immigrant community organizations in Seattle that are doing the hard work of, building out rapid response networks and, supporting immigrant communities, making sure people don't have to go to immigration hearings alone, supporting people who've been detained. And so the city should be working very, very closely with all of those folks and making sure that they have the support that they need.
I think we wanted to also ask you just a broader question about what your campaign teaches progressives across the country. You're really coming to this work as an organizer, as an advocate, now as a candidate. In this moment in time, which feels like just such an incredible uphill struggle, what do you think are the ways that progressives can claim and hold on to power, either inside the system or outside of it, or both?
Mm.
What sorts of actions do you hope people take away from your campaign and begin to carry into other places and communities around the US?
Mm. Yeah, good question. I mean, I would say that I think the strength of my campaign, or maybe me as a candidate, is largely the work that I've done, as a community organizer with the Transit Riders Union, as a coalition builder with all of the coalitions that I've, built over the years. It's the fact that all of that work resulted in real tangible benefits for thousands of people in their daily lives every day, right? I think that is what people are looking for right now. So, when I'm able to go out and say, like, look, we raised the minimum wage to the highest in the country in several cities around the county. We won stronger renter protections in 8 cities. We've improved the public transit system and won free and reduced fare programs that, tens of thousands of riders use. We've, won the jumpstart tax, right, which saved the city budget, right? Those are such concrete things that people can really understand how people are benefiting from that. And it addresses those, um, affordability, quality of life issues that people are facing every day. And so I think that really is what those bread and butter issues are really what people want to see action on right now. And so I think that is what's resonating with people above all. And so what I would say to, progressives around the country is yeah, let's fight for those things, right? Fight for those things and show people that we can really move the needle. We're not just all talk.
Yeah, their side has Elon and Jeff Bezos, and our side has you. So I like our odds, Katie. I like our odds a lot. Anyhow,
Oh
thank you
boy.
so much for making time for us today.
Thank you both. Yeah, wonderful to chat with you.
Yeah, and congrats. Hope you get some sleep at some point soon in the next few months.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very
Uh,
much looking
yeah.
forward to those returns widening
Yeah.
today at 4:30. So yeah,
Mhm.
Yes, we'll see what happens. Feeling positive about it all. So,
as you should. Yeah. Uh, well, we'll let you go, and seriously, my friend, thank you so much just for
Thank
this
you for
and
your
for everything
time.
else.
Yeah.
of course, thank you both. Talk to you later.
Well, I gotta say, Marcus, you officially have the greatest friend network of anyone I know, and thank you for sharing Katie with us today.
Yeah, I'm not going to be humble about having a great friend network, so I would just say yes, Nora. Thank you. You are on. I mean, honestly, you are one of them as well. So, just to affirm all of that, and I gotta say, again, just to reiterate what we talked about earlier, like Katie is just a regular, normal person who literally was like, "There's something that needs to be done in our city," and so let me do it. And I know how corny and cliche that possibly sounds. I get it. But also, sometimes corny and cliched is just fine. And
Hmm.
I think ultimately, I hope more and more people start to ask themselves this question of like, why not me? Why shouldn't
Hmm.
I run for something? And why can't I impact change? And you know what?
Hmm.
The answer many people will get is you can. So yeah, I look at Katie as regardless of what happens in November. I mean, of course, I know what I hope happens, but regardless of what happens in November, I think she is very much a wonderful example and demonstration of what more people should be doing right now.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great segue to our 8 ounces of joy. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. So I've alluded to it several times in the show today, but over in Texas, there are 50 Democratic lawmakers who bounced out of the state uh, due to the fact that they wanted to block this horrid redistricting effort that would gerrymander essentially the state of Texas and give Republicans 5 more additional seats right before the midterm elections. And this is basically President Trump saying that, I want to make sure, even though I have extremely unpopular policies like the one big ugly fucking bill, to, as one of our previous guests referred to it as, like, I want to ensure that there is no such thing as democracy, essentially. And I just want to make sure that we can go on with our policies no matter how unpopular they might be. So you had 50 Democratic state lawmakers who were like, fuck that. That kind of sounds a lot like fascism. And so we're bouncing to Illinois and elsewhere around the country. Uh, Long story short, that has not set well with Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who's asked their Supreme Court to remove the Democratic caucus chair, Gene Wu, and as well as the FBI has gotten involved under FBI Director Kash Patel, who, if you're keeping score at home, used to be a conspiracy theorist podcaster and now somehow runs the FBI agency. And so, anyhow, I said all that to say,
Maybe at least he'll be really bad at directing the FBI to find these guys.
that is true. The incompetence could actually come into play in a good way here, which which is why I have to say I have to give a shout out to Gene Wu, the Democratic caucus chair over in Texas, because he said, and I quote, "This isn't my seat. The seat belongs to the people of the state of Texas. Until the people of the state of Texas tell me to go away, I will stay here and fight with everything that I have. This is not about me. This is not about Democrats. This is not about political power. This is about protecting what we believe and love about America." And so I gotta say, like, Gene Wu is actually demonstrating some level of courage in the
Mm-hmm.
fact that he and the other Democratic legislators are out of the state of Texas and trying not to come back to make sure this just, quite frankly, blatant power grab does not happen. And I will say, as with so many of our American institutions, whether it is the news media, whether it is academia, quite frankly, just being profiles in cowardice, it is
Mm-hmm.
good to, again, see more and more demonstrations like this where people are actually demonstrating courage in a way that they know that there could be blowback. They know that there could be consequences, and they're like, fuck it, I'm willing to deal with those. Like, we need more
Yeah.
of these things happening, and we need to, quite frankly, just spotlight more of this happening so that this becomes more commonplace.
Yes. Well, mine is also about bravery this week, but in a totally different vein. Um, I had this one like on tap for this week. It was happening for me before the election results, and then the election results in Seattle were also such a source of joy. And this conversation, honestly, with Katie Wilson was such a source of joy and inspiration about the bravery to just stand up and do something. But so that's kind of the theme of my week, I think. My week was full of a lot of announcements of commitments of love and new babies and engagements from friends and family. And I know it can seem like really small and just like sort of personal, but many people that I these announcements were coming from people that I know have thought long and hard about how terrible the world is and how hard it is to choose relationships and investing in each other in times when it feels like what is tomorrow, like what does next year look like, and I increasingly think that's a really radical and beautiful act, to choose to deepen our relationships with each other, with places that we love, to choose to bring other humans into this world as bad as it seems, in whatever form those commitments and relationships look like for people. I think they're brave choices, and maybe even necessary choices, and it feels joyful to be able to celebrate them right now. So here's to people making braver choices.
Absolutely. What a friend of mine said once that, yeah, or you reiterated that quote that having a child is a bet on the future, or just means you're just fucking delusional. So I'm gonna
It's
go
so
with
true.
it's a bet on the future. It's a bet
Well,
on the
as someone who
future.
I gave birth the week before Trump was first elected, and I had never really wanted to be a parent. I thought the world was a pretty terrible place to bring children into. Somehow became delusional enough to like reverse that position, and then Trump was elected like literally the week that I gave birth. Um, but I have to say I think it is one of the most transformative things to choose love even in times of darkness and to choose to support each other. And I think it's the only way we actually get through actually.
Yeah, I think that's the one of the easiest, best ways of rebellion right now. So that's certainly
Yeah.
one of the most accessible at this
I
moment.
mean, if you can't flee Texas for Illinois and piss off Greg Abbott, you can
Mm,
also make a really consequential life choice that you might regret later
that
on.
so true,
Kidding.
so true. Well, well, on that note, can you start the readout, my good friend?
Yes, I am happy to. So congratulations to our listeners because you have made it through another week in this really awful group project we call the United States of America, where no one read the syllabus and half the team is live streaming their loyalty to billionaires for clout, and the rest of us are being barely held together by caffeine and gallows humor and a slow burning fury that's too exhausted to riot but too bitter to log off. I will stop talking now. Marcus, please sign us off.
I just gotta underscore all that is truth. I'll just say that. Well, as always, massive thank yous to our fearless producer Jessica Partnow, who somehow keeps the ship afloat, and to Ahama Luo for blessing us with music that makes our existential dread somehow just a little less dreadful. You can follow In the Meanwhile wherever you get your podcasts, or on YouTube, Instagram, and yes, even Blue Sky for the 5 of you who actively post there daily. Thank you.
We love
And if
you.
you want to
Thank
support
you.
the show, we do. If you do want to support the show, or just pretend you're doing something productive with your rage, head to in-the-meanwhile.com to subscribe or donate. And if you get anything valuable from this episode or any of our episodes, please share this show with your friends or with your enemies. We don't really care. We just want somebody to listen to
We're
us.
not picky.
Not at all. Not at all. A reminder that new episodes drop every Friday. And until then, we'll see you in the meanwhile.